Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Michael Barron. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, and this is part of a series of public policy forums that we do in co-sponsorship with the Siegal Lifelong Learning Program at Case Western Reserve and the Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com and the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, and in this case with Lakewood Library. We have a couple of forums coming up I just want to quickly tell you about. In about 2 weeks, on the 20th of March, we have a forum on redistricting in Beechwood. We'll have an author by the name of David Daly and Catherine Teresa, who's with Common Cause Ohio, and Senator Larry Obhoff will be here, and we'll be talking about issue 1, which is on the ballot May 8th, and all of the other states that are in play right now on the redistricting front. In April, back here at Lakewood Library, we have a forum on single-payer health care, which is an interesting issue and is being talked about across the country. The moderator for that is Ginger Christ, who's the healthcare reporter for the Plain Dealer. That'll be on April the 25th here at Lakewood Library. And finally, in May, in Cleveland Heights Library, we have a forum on women in politics and how to get more women to run for office. The moderator for that is Mary Kilpatrick, who's with Cleveland.com, and that'll be on May the 16th. Tonight, we have a forum on consumer scams, and I'd like to introduce our moderator. Teresa Murray has been a business writer for 3 decades and has been reporting on personal finance for the Plain Dealer for nearly 20 years. Her banking and consumer finance coverage has earned her more than a dozen state and national awards in the last 10 years. Her coverage focuses on educating and empowering consumers, and in recent years has concentrated on financial privacy, identity theft, and consumer protection in this era of nonstop fraud and scams, which we'll be hearing more about tonight. And she writes twice a week financial advice column in the Plain Dealer. Teresa is a native of Akron, and she has a husband. She and her husband have 2 adult sons. Teresa?
Thanks to all you for making it out tonight. I've been here for a couple of hours, so I don't know how much nastier it's gotten, but we appreciate you making the effort. Hopefully, we'll have a lot of good information that we'll be sharing this evening. And I want to introduce our panel, which it's like, you know, Shazam, how do you get this many like good people all in one room? So first of all, we have Sue McConnell, who is the president of the Better Business Bureau of Cleveland. We have Larissa Bungo, who is the assistant regional director of the Federal Trade Commission in Cleveland. And then we have Sheryl Harris, who is the director of consumer affairs for Cuyahoga County. All awesome people in their own right with just vast amounts of information. Hopefully we'll get through a lot of good stuff here tonight, and then we'll allow time for questions and answers. First, I want to tell you a little bit. Back in 1999, I went to lunch with an economics professor from one of the local colleges here, and we were just chit-chatting about, you know, business and stuff. And then he pulls out a printout. He's like, Teresa, I want you to look at something here for me. Because back in 1999, there were no smartphones, there was no Wi-Fi. We were at Cooker's Restaurant down in Independence, which I'm pretty sure that's out of business. And so he hands me this printout. He had gotten a printout, an email from Amazon. And it was asking, like, you know, his name and his address and social security number and driver's license number and date of birth. And he was a member of Amazon. He's like, I don't know what this is. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what it is either. I've never seen anything like that before in my life, but I'm pretty sure you shouldn't fill it out. He's like, okay, can you take this printout with you and find out what it is? Well, really, the term phishing was brand new back then. So it took a little bit of figuring out. It's like, oh, somebody has posed as Amazon to try and get this guy who had like 4 graduate degrees, master's and doctorate degrees, to give up his information. And he was tempted, and then, you know, something triggered and it caught in a red flag, and he's like, this doesn't look right. So it's interesting how far that we've come since then. Really 20 years ago, or 19 years ago, we didn't have the kind of stuff that we have now. I mean, those kinds of scams were catching people off guard, and were hurting people when they gave up their bank account information, their social security numbers, their dates of birth, all that kind of stuff. And we saw just years and years of identity theft that stemmed from that. So people got smart after that. And as I mentioned, I've been writing about mortgage scams, phishing scams, robocalls, my personal non-favorite. And as Mike mentioned, I write a twice-a-week column, and I never cease to be amazed and horrified by the tales that I hear from people of the stuff that's going on out there and the stuff that people are getting hurt by. And it just breaks my heart sometimes. So we're going to talk about how we can all learn to protect ourselves better, and how you folks can learn how to become just as paranoid and cynical and distrustful and neurotic as the four of us. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to start off talking about, with each of the panelists, what is the one scam that you are seeing the most in recent months? Start with you, Sue.
Okay. At the Better Business Bureau, we have a site called Scam Tracker, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So I took a look at what's been happening on our Scam Tracker site of scams being reported by people in the Cleveland area over the last 6 months. And what I'm seeing, we get a lot of phishing, as you mentioned, Teresa. There still are a lot of phishing scams, but we're having a real run of what we call online purchase scams. People who are being duped by businesses on the internet. Now, these could be businesses that are spoofing legitimate businesses and selling brand name counterfeit merchandise. These could be companies that are selling really low price knockoff articles of clothing. A lot of these sites are companies that are located actually in foreign countries, not in the United States. And people are filing complaints with us and scam reports with us indicating that they are going to these websites, they're buying merchandise, and they're not getting the merchandise in most cases. Or if they do get the merchandise, it's some cheap knockoff. We've seen fake Tiffany jewelry sites. We've seen fake websites for just about every brand name, high-end brand name product you can imagine. So you need to be very, very careful if you're on the internet or on social media and ads come up for sites, especially if they're offering you a free trial offer. And especially if that free trial offer is some kind of anti-aging product, vitamin, health product, anything that is very tempting to think you'll get a quick fix to personal issues. We see a lot of scam offers where there's a free trial, and buried somewhere on the website, and sometimes not even, you're being notified that if you agree to get the free trial, within 30 days your credit card's going to start getting billed for $90, $100 or more a month, and they just keep shipping product to you, and it's quite a surprise. So we're seeing a lot of online purchase fraud.
Okay. And what about you, Larissa?
Nationally, I would say we're seeing imposter scams. So these are the scams where someone is impersonating someone else. So whether it's a call that you get and it's on the other line is someone who says they're Microsoft or Windows technical trying to fix something on your computer, or it's someone purporting to be your grandchild in an emergency that needs money sent to them right away, or someone who loves you from afar but you'll never get to see in person, a romance scam. Imposter scams are on the rise, and the FTC has just published its data book, which is the compilation of complaints that we receive for the year. The highest fraud category was imposter scams. And unfortunately, these keep evolving. So I hope we'll get to talk a little bit more about those.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And Sheryl?
Well, the one that we're concerned about in Cuyahoga County actually is an imposter scam, and it's kind of a newer variant, and it's very localized. It's a we're just calling them county imposter scams, and they're scams where someone pretends to be a sheriff's deputy and says calls people and tells them they've missed a court date or a jury duty date, or they've missed an actual hearing in court that they were supposed to be at, and then they tell them they've got to pay money to avert being arrested, and there's an officer on the way to arrest them. And we've seen a lot of these. We've seen a lot of people shaken down and lose money, and it looks to us now, we're working with the Sheriff's Department on this, but it looks to us now as though they are working their way through lists of people who've been criminal defendants, and so they're very much trying to stay on the right side of the law. They're trying to stay within their probation, and they're terrifying these people into paying money for fake fines or for missing showing up. So we're keeping a close eye on those right now.
Okay. And then all of these have a component, I mean, even going back to like the phishing email from 1999, they all have a component of fake and posing as something, trying to pretend that someone is something that they're not. And, you know, I mean, the people who have gotten caught up in some of these scams are at all spectrums, you know, people who are super smart, super savvy bankers, and then all the way down to, you know, teenagers who have been caught up in some of these. And what I'd like to do is, and we have, by the way, we have a tip sheet that we'll give you when you folks leave this evening, and it'll compile some of the stuff that we're talking about here. But I'd like to hit on, if you could rattle off the 3 biggest red flags that somebody should watch out for. And if you spot one of these, it smells, and stop. Why don't we start with you, Sheryl?
My biggest one is just know that no legitimate government agency accepts payments by gift card or money wire. And those are scammer favorites for payment. No agency accepts them.
And that's including police departments.
That's including police departments, not local government agencies like the police, and not federal agencies like the FBI or the IRS. They will not take a money wire. They will not take like an Amazon gift card or a Home Depot gift card or another kind of gift card. And there are a lot of scammers that will tell you these convert. There's a payment system that just got approved, so now that the government's accepting them, that is absolutely not true. If someone says gift card, money wire, hang up the phone. The other one is just if someone tells you to deposit money, or they try to deposit money in your account and then tell you that you very quickly have to turn around and give that money back to someone, the biggest kind is like a fake check scam where you get a check, it's supposed to be a winning or a grant, you deposit it in your account, and then you need to pay taxes or something, so you're supposed to give some of that money back. I just want you to know that when you deposit a check into your account, if you're a very good banking customer, your bank will give you an advance on that check. And they will actually put the money from that deposited check into your account so it looks like the check was good, but that doesn't mean that it cleared on the other end. And there are a lot of counterfeit checks out there that these scammers are using. So when you put that check in your account, you see the money, and then you think, okay, I can pay this was a legitimate check. I really have won this money. I really have, you know, I'm going to pay this payment out. As soon as your bank realizes it's counterfeit and it hasn't cleared the other bank, they take that money back, and you're on the hook for whatever money you spent. So red flag, someone tells you deposit money and immediately send it back somewhere else. No, never, ever, ever do that. And the last thing, it's less a red flag for a scam. I just want to say that people tend to be really vulnerable at certain times, and be aware of your own self. If you're sick, if you're not feeling well, if it's the anniversary of the death of someone that you loved, if you've recently lost someone, a lot of times we find that people who are in that spot really don't have the barriers. Like they would have hung up on a call a week before, a month before. But we really find that in that kind of period, when you're vulnerable, you tend not to have that kind of resilience. So I would just say, just be aware, and if you are not feeling 100%, it's okay to check with a friend or a relative before you make a decision. And if anyone tells you have to lie to your friends or relatives, you have to lie to your bank, that would be a big flag for a scam. That's pretty normal in a lot of these kinds of scams. So if someone's telling you have to lie or hide something from the companies you do business with or your family, that would be a scam.
What are your 2, say, favorite red flags?
Sure. Well, the first I would say contact that comes out of the blue. So, you know, the phone call that's unexpected, the email that you didn't initiate from your bank telling you to do something, contact that's out of the blue, something urgent, creates a sense of urgency, wants you to respond immediately, you must do something right away, taking away your opportunity to think about it. And the third thing is pay for a promise. So you can get that $1 million that you won after you pay me for the taxes, or you can have that prize that you never signed up for after you pay for the insurance. There's always some upfront charge that should clue in for, there's something not quite right here.
Okay. And what about you, Sue?
I'd have to echo a lot of the things that the others have said. Threats, if somebody's threatening you with jail or a big fine, if they're claiming that they're the IRS or you owe back taxes or you didn't pay off a payday loan and they're threatening to come and arrest you at 2 o'clock this afternoon unless you go buy gift cards and go back and give them the numbers off the gift cards. If they're trying to keep you in isolation, do not tell your family about this great sweepstakes you've won or you're going to lose the $5 million I promised you. Do not, I'm your grandson, I'm in trouble, grandma, grandpa, but don't tell mom and dad because I don't want to get in trouble with mom and dad. So if somebody tries to isolate you, to make a decision without conferring with others, that's a red flag. Promising you that you've won great riches and threatening. Like you say, a sense of urgency, threatening, demanding payment from you, especially in some odd way. Buying gift cards is one of the odd ways.
Okay. Now, we talked about a little bit about the imposter scams, which, the emails that look like they come from PNC or KeyBank, the phone calls that are from Bank of America, and you need to call back this number because your credit card has been shut down. Those are the kinds of things those are one of the biggest things that I hear about from people. And people are getting smarter, so that's good. But Larissa, can you talk a little bit about how much more sophisticated that some of these have gotten, especially when they actually have some information already about the person, and like with, the correct logo and all that kind of stuff if it's an email?
Sure. Well, maybe I could talk about a current scam, which touches on all of that. So I briefly mentioned the tech support scam. Is everyone sort of familiar with that? That's where you get a call from someone purporting to be Microsoft or Windows technical, and they're going to fix your computer. So first I'll say Microsoft does not have a window into your home. For those who haven't heard about this, they can't tell if there's something wrong with your computer unless you have told them. So the call that comes out of the blue is a red flag. Unfortunately, what we see is folks who fall victim to that scam are then susceptible to what's called a refund or a reload scam. So now, unfortunately, the victim is on a list. A current scam that we've been seeing following up on the tech support scam is a few months after you've made that purchase, the consumer has made the purchase for the tech support scams, call comes out of the blue, and this time it says, we want to refund your money. We're going out of business, and we want to return the money to you that you paid. The scam artist will ask for access to your bank account information. And what happens is this, the caller will, when they're talking to you, they're getting into your online bank account information and they're moving your own money. So in the instance of the scam, the amount that you paid might be $200. The caller says, I've made a big mistake. I accidentally refunded $2,200. Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. Can you just help me out? Could you just send me the excess money by wire? I'm going to need that right away, or I'm going to lose my job. Well, what has happened is the scam artist with access to the bank account information has moved the consumer's own money from, let's say, savings to checking to make it look like there is a deposit of $2,200. But all it really is the consumer's own money. And then if that consumer then turns around and wires the money out to the scam artist, he is out his own money. So this is a common, unfortunately, recurring scam that we see, and just want to get the word out to be wary. Again, there are no free refunds. Any legitimate business that you deal with knows how to return money to you and won't call out of the blue asking for access to your bank account.
And I know we touched on it a little bit earlier. I want to hit you on something, but they've asked me to make an announcement that people who are parked behind the plaza, navigationally challenged, is that to our east? Across Mars, I think there's diagonal parking over there.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
That they're going to start towing cars. I guess the book sale is really popular. And because I'm navigationally challenged and I don't know Mars from whatever Arthur and whatever you said, I think my car is also parked over there. So I'm going to go move my car, and I'm going to turn it over to the next couple. Well, I don't want my car towed.
I'm there too.
You're there too.
Hey, Sue and I will keep this party going.
Well,
We
I'm
got
saying
it.
the next. Yeah, I'm sure you can. The next things that we were going to talk about, though, is I want to talk more. You and I have talked before about the fraudulent checks and the overpayment and how people have gotten caught up in that. People who like have Publishers Clearinghouse checks and anything, and work at home scams and grants. So if you can talk about that, and then I was going to get into the emotional stuff that you were talking about earlier, and I'm really and you can start off with that too.
Sure.
I'm really interested about how you said that it's not senior citizens necessarily, they're always the biggest victims or the most vulnerable victims, that it can actually be the millennials. So we're going to see if we can set a time record on how quickly I can haul out there.
I'm
All right.
Be right back.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the overpayment scams and the government grant, and then I'll off to you. Okay. Good luck with your car. All right. We'll talk a little bit about the the overpayment scams. I think we're having car issues. So, overpayment scams. These can take all different kinds of forms. One that is not uncommon is that you have offered something for sale on Craigslist or some other similar type of site online. So you have something you no longer want. Maybe you've advertised it in a local paper, but a lot of these are originating from people who are trolling sites like Craigslist. So you get a buyer for this item, and they are so excited they want to buy your bicycle, and they are willing to they're going to send you a check. And lo and behold, you get a check for the bicycle, but it's for $1,200 more than the purchase price. And the seller then says, "Oh my goodness, I made a mistake. Can you deposit that check and then wire the difference back to me?" And so they're trying to get you to deposit this check for $1,200 more or some other amount more than the purchase price. And then get you to, once that check is in your account, and as Sheryl was saying, just because the bank makes the funds available to you from that check doesn't mean that check is valid and has cleared. But the scammer's hoping that you'll think that check is valid. You'll then take the $1,200 overpayment and wire it back to them somewhere. And these scammers are counting on you to be trusting, and they're counting on you to be honest and not want to keep more money than the purchase price and wire these funds back. And of course, the end of the story is that ultimately your bank advises you that that check you deposited was a counterfeit check, it wasn't a valid check, and any funds you withdrew from that check, you now owe back to the bank for that. These things also happen sometimes with different work at home offers. Younger people get caught up a lot in these types of fraudulent check scams when they post resumes online and they get offers from employers who are wanting to hire them without an interview, regardless of their qualifications. And these students are told that they can work at their own pace, they can work from their dorm room, any hours or days of the week they want, they can make a lot of money, and they're going to send them some kind of payment. And again, maybe they have to, again, deposit this check and buy something with the money or send the money to somebody for some phony testing they're supposed to take to get their phony job. And again, this is all just a ruse to get you to take that fund, take the check, deposit it, withdraw money from it, and wire it off to a third party.
And mystery shopping.
And mystery shopping is another one, yes, where they, and we still do see this. This was a lot more popular at one time, but, I hear that they're happening today. And this is an offer that you can be a mystery shopper for a company. And report back to the company then how your experience was as a customer. And one of the ways that they used to do a lot of scams with this is they tell you to go to Western Union and wire money. So they would give you a payment, again, deposit the check, take the money out, go to Western Union and shop Western Union. Act like a customer and take this money and wire it off to somebody. And again, the scammer is going to end up with the money you wire. The check they gave you to use to do the shopping with, again, is a fraudulent check. And you'll end up owing the bank back for that money. Then I'm going to talk about grant scams a little bit, because this is one of those that we see a lot. There's almost not a week that goes by that somebody doesn't call our office or submit something at our scam tracker site about a phony grant. And these grants can come to you in the form of someone calling you saying that because you've never filed bankruptcy, the government wants to give you a lot of money, and there's a grant available for you. You may find sites online that are offering grants, and you also may hear about them from people that you trust. And I wanted to read you a scam submission that was just posted on our scam tracker site this week, about a place called Home Care Family Grant. And this consumer said, "My pastor sent me a message on Instagram. An organization called Home Care and Family Grant was offering an $80,000 government grant. I responded to the number by text." So they thought they got a message on Instagram from their pastor, giving them information about this grant and a number to text. That was the only way to communicate with the grant offer, was by texting. They then received a text back from the grant offer asking for name, address, phone number, birthday, monthly income, and then wanting them to submit $300 using iTunes Apple gift cards as the payment method, in order for the FBI to deliver the $80,000 grant. So at this point, this person was smart enough to figure out that this was a scam, because, as they say, if you're receiving a grant, you shouldn't have to pay money up front, and they're exactly right. So they threatened to report this to the Better Business Bureau and FBI, and the scammer texted back, "Go right ahead, we're for real." And then this person finally got around to calling the pastor, who said his Instagram account had been hacked and somebody was impersonating him. So that happens a lot with social media accounts, and we've heard this more than once. We've seen phony Facebook pages of organizations offering grants, and the catch is they always want you to pay a fee. Sometimes it's $1,000, sometimes it's $5,000. We've known people that have borrowed money to be able to pay the upfront fee to get the grant. And of course, the grant never materializes, because grants are not just offered to you for no good reason. And the government doesn't call us offering us grant money. Grants are given for very specific purposes, very limited purposes. And if anybody tells you that you've got a government grant coming your way and you just have to pay a fee in order to pay the legal fees or whatever they want to tell you, they are lying, because there is no grant.
Did you guys talk about the millennials?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I've
Well, I'll
just
tell you
been
what,
rambling since you left.
Let me talk, since you talk about grants, though, one of the things that I wanted to share, which, by the way, I can give you a weather report, too. It's
Yeah.
still snowing, and it's
Yeah.
actually starting to accumulate a little bit of slushy stuff, but I think we'll be fine when we end up heading out of here, in an hour or so. I heard one a few weeks ago that was new to me, and I might have mentioned it. I'm not sure who I mentioned it to, maybe Sue. Anyway, this is how you can get caught in a scam without even doing anything wrong yourself. This will scare the heck out of you. Finally got my mom to open a second checking account, which I've been begging her to do for years. Right up there with getting rid of a debit card. She finally opened a second checking account, and here's what happened. I heard from a gentleman who's an executive at Chase, and he had a customer who was an older woman who had been unemployed, and she was applying for a grant for going back to school to get some kind of training. And she's applying for all kinds of grants like crazy. So we got the desperation factor going on here. Don't know how tech savvy she was as far as her computer and stuff, but she ended up getting one. Hey, whatever. You're getting this grant. It's fantastic. And so in order for her to receive the grant reward, she had to supply her bank account number and her routing number. Okay, fine. So, of course, it was, bad news. Not only did she supply this, okay, which allowed the thieves to hack into her account. They were able to get enough information to get into her account. I think she supplied her online user ID and password too, because, hey, they're going to give me money. And, what's wrong with that? So the bad guy gets into her bank account, okay? Now, she had been unemployed for several months, and so she had relatives, people from church, who had been helping her out, giving her checks for $25 there, $50 there, to help her with groceries and utilities and stuff like that. The thief got into her banking account and was able to click on checks that had been deposited and see the names, addresses, bank account numbers, routing numbers of other people who had done nothing except be nice and give this woman money. So I don't know if any of y'all do any online banking or not. Some banks do display like checks that have been deposited, and some banks don't. But one of the things that I am telling people, I've been telling people for years, but it's even more so now because I hadn't heard of this. Had you guys heard anything about like that?
Of getting on access into online bank accounts?
Yeah.
Not a lot, but.
Because see, then what can happen is, like, there were 4 people in this case with the Chase Bank, is there were 4 people who had written checks, all of a sudden name, address, bank account number, routing number, all exposed, and then they can get ACH transactions into their accounts, and all of a sudden they're caught up in stuff too. I can explain something a little bit later about one of the other ones I'm seeing involving fraudulent income tax refunds. But clearly, automatic clearinghouse, it's an electronic deposit, direct deposit, Social Security, any kind of ACH. So you don't want, like the people who gave money to this person did nothing wrong except be nice. So what I'm telling people is never give a check from your primary checking account, which of course, if there's a primary, there's got to be a secondary. You've got to have a second one. Never give a check from your primary checking account, especially to an individual that you don't know very well. Maybe a sibling is okay, maybe a child is okay, maybe not, because you don't know how stupid they are. But don't expose your primary checking account. It's just critical. Do you guys have anything to add to that? No. Okay.
That's a new.
That was a new one. That was a new one for me. Anyway, so why don't we talk about the millennials? Because I think, and it's a largely older group here, and a lot of times people think that older folks tend to be more vulnerable and fall prey to scams and tend to be targeted more, but that's not necessarily the case. And that millennials or younger people can be just as vulnerable. So who wants to bite that off?
Well, the Better Business Bureau has compiled some information a couple different ways. One is a survey that was done with 2,000 adults in 2016. And then the other thing we look at are all these submissions that come into the BBB Scam Tracker site. And while there is a stereotype that older consumers tend to be more susceptible to fraud and more victimized by fraud, the information that's been reported to us and that we found in these surveys are that that's not necessarily the case, that we have younger people are actually more susceptible, especially to certain types of fraud like employment scams, again, these students that are looking for part-time work or just entering the workforce, online purchase scams because they're online a lot, and even the fake check scams that we talked about from some of the phony job offers and things. And that they're more susceptible, they tend to be victimized more. Older consumers tend to be more savvy about a lot of these things, but when they do lose money to scams, they lose more money because these scams are often trying to get more money from them, paying thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and sometimes losing homes to phony sweepstakes fraud from scammers that just keep telling you to send more and more money in order to get the millions and millions that they've promised you from the phony sweepstakes. So it's not, the younger people they think they're less vulnerable, but in reality, they really are not less vulnerable.
They just haven't been around the block enough times.
And if I
Welcome.
can just
Go ahead.
add to that, like, I think this is one of the things that makes people more vulnerable to scams. They have this idea in their head about who a scam victim is, and it's usually some, elderly person who has dementia, who has memory issues, and there are those people, and they are very vulnerable because they don't have, the barriers that we have. They can't protect themselves against it. But there have been some studies, scientific studies. 1 in 18 seniors who live in their homes have no cognitive impairment at all. 1 in 18 are victims of scams. And so I think a lot of young people are running around thinking they can't be scammed because they're young and they have phones and they know what's what, but they are vulnerable. And we see, and older people who are scammed, we see in our office, it's not always like people who are living alone and aren't able to check with people. We just had a couple who came to our office. They got a call from someone who said she was a public defender and their grandson had been texting and ran through a red light and hit an unmarked police cruiser, and the officer was in the hospital, the son was in jail, and a man got on the phone weeping and sobbing and saying, "I'm so sorry, please don't tell mom and dad, they're gonna be so angry, and then the public defender gets back on and says, we think because this was an unmarked cruiser and they were on this special job, we would like to get this all taken care of without it ever going to court. If you can pay, like $4,000 to cover the bail and the injuries to the officer, we can take care of this. He won't have a record." And they told him to go to a local store and buy these gift cards, which now have this new agreement with the government to send this money, to convert money over, to make these payments faster and easier.
They really don't,
They don't. Yeah, that's true. That is not a true thing. So the couple went, and this is what I'm talking about being vulnerable to these scams. This couple, okay, they're together, they're talking about it. What you should know about them is the day before they had buried their son. So they were in the worst emotional place you can imagine, and a threat to another family member of theirs was really significant to them. I mean, they would do anything, right? They're caught up in this, and they went to not Home Depot, I think they went, one of the big boxes, I think it was Best Buy, and they went to this store. And the clerk had these cards, and they're outside for you. They're hang-up if cards from Scam Squad, and they tell you, scams. And one of these is hang up if a caller claims to be a grandchild who needs bail money. And the clerk picked this up, and she held it up to these guys, and she said, "This is a scam, and I don't want to sell you these cards."
Thank God.
And, oh no, the man argued. He was so angry. He was trying to protect his grandson. He wasn't going to have her stand between him and this kid. And it was like a big to-do. So she takes his credit card and she gives it back. She gives him his 4 gift cards. He leaves. He goes home. And the scammer calls, as they always do, and they said, "Read me the numbers off the card." And what you should know is, as soon as you read the numbers off those cards, someone can actually use them online. They can sell them, they can strip the value off, so they have the money that you put on them, right? So they read off 4 cards, $1,000 each, all these numbers, they read them out to the scammer. And then, and this always happens with scams, the minute they pay, they start to get suspicious. It's like there's suddenly, like, you're so panicked about this situation, but the minute you pay, the panic goes away, and it's like, you know, there are such weird things about this call. They're starting to get suspicious. The scammer calls back and says, hey, none of these cards work. Well, it turns out that clerk never activated the cards because she was so, I know. It was like so he went back to the store. He was on his way back because he still half believed this scam. He was going to go back and yell at her for, like, why aren't these cards working? His wife made a call to a family member and found out the grandson was safe at home. And so he went to the store and he found her. And I said, well, what did you do then? And he said, well, I hugged her. but I mean, it's really like, I can't even stress to you how caught up these scammers. What you have to know is they do this 24/7. This is their job. They are so good at this. And we're just amateurs when we answer that phone. They are good at spinning these psychological things that get us spinning, and it's hard to get out. And that's why we keep saying, you know, call a family member. It's really okay. Like, if you're panicked, that is not the time to send money. I mean, you really have to put on the brakes, but it's so hard. Even when someone's maybe telling you it's a scam, you just really have to be aware of your emotions and how you're feeling. And if it's about money, you have to know that you're not in a good place to make a choice about it.
Yeah, and I know, like, Sue and I have talked about this before too. There's nothing to be embarrassed about if somebody gets caught up in a scam, because, like I said, I've talked to extremely intelligent people, way smarter than I am, and people who are cynical and, like, work in jobs that you think that all kinds of alarms would go off. And the one thing that I find with, and I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but with the older folks is a lot of times if they do get victimized, then they're reluctant to tell their children or even maybe a spouse, because all of a sudden they don't want, you know, the family member to think that they can't handle their own financial affairs. So there is like this stigma. It's like, oh snap, what did I do? And, you know, maybe they learn from it, maybe it'll never happen again, but then they don't report it. And of course, if they don't report it, there's absolutely no hope of getting any of their money back. Anyway, Larissa, glad you're back, because one of the other big things that I wanted to talk about, and it's like, this is probably the biggest thing that I get inquiries about all the time: robocalls, call spoofing, stuff. And you know, people say, well, I'm on the do not call list. And it's like, well, gee, do you think the fact that the thief is like already trying to call you and rip you off, that they give a rat's behind about the do not call list? No, of course not. And it's gotten so much more difficult now with the call spoofing, and which I got a nasty email from the people who run Spoof Call, by the way, a few weeks ago. But can you talk about what is going on with robocalls, all the different variations that people see, what is going on with call spoofing, like from people's neighborhoods, that kind of stuff?
Sure. So the first thing I want to say is that, you know, absent a small number of robocalls that are legal, such as 911 calls or calls about safety, routine phone calls that you have given consent to receive, robocalls are not only annoying, they're illegal. So if you are on the do not call list and you get a call from someone who's trying to sell you something, that's a big red flag that it's a scam. And the best thing you can do is just hang up. Don't try to engage in any way. Don't press a number to get on another do not call list. Don't engage with the person even to just see what their story is. Just hang up. Don't go any further with it. Where we are with robocalls is, you know, frankly, the technology is cheap to do these calls. So telemarketers find that it's an easy way to try to find willing victims. And they are calling us because we are paying them. They keep going. The government has the do not call, the FTC has the do not call program, and I will say that legitimate businesses follow the do not call. The scam artists don't care about the do not call list. So we have to be vigilant. We have to know that the call that comes in still trying to sell us when we're already on the list is a scam. The FTC has brought enforcement actions. We've brought hundreds of actions against companies that are making billions of calls. But the fact remains, there's no way we can get at all of the bad actors without help from the industry. So what we know is that we've got to find better tools to investigate these scams, and we need to involve stakeholders, the industry in particular, and figure out how to respond. So I'm happy to report that this month and next month, the FTC and the FCC are working together with the carriers to try to figure out how we stop these calls before they get to us. And the carriers are in the best position to stop the call before they get through to us. No amount of enforcement actions that we can bring can act as quickly as that measure. One good thing about the spoof call, so a spoof call is where the telemarketer has taken, let's say, my phone number, and they're acting like they're generating a call from my number. You probably see this where a call comes in on your caller ID and it looks like your neighbor is calling, or you recognize the extension that it might be a family member, so you pick up. They do that because they're hoping to get to you. They're trying to bypass call blocking procedures by making it look like it's a call that has originated from an actual number. There are rules now that allow the carriers to block spoof numbers. And we're hoping that those can take effect very quickly. This is just recently passed. And some of the discussions that are taking place this month and next are about how we can get those mechanisms to work quickly. I think that will help with the problem. And then we have technological challenges that we ask innovators, help us. If you know how to stop these robocalls, by all means, help us. We have a tech expo coming up in April, and there have been some other expos where good call blocking technology has come out of it. One that I'll mention is Nomorobo. Sounds just like I'm saying N-O-M, M like Mary, O, Robo. Nomorobo is a free service for most of us that's available you can get it through your mobile phone or your landline. And it won one of our challenges.
I heard the tech guy at the Channel 8 News talk about this a month ago, but he said Nomorobo was only available on Apple iPhones.
They have started to expand.
Yeah,
They have, yes. So I would ask about that. And if it's not available by your carrier, ask for it, because it's effective.
There are a few of the carriers that don't offer it, like WOW locally
Does not?
does not support Nomorobo.
Okay.
But most of them do.
Thank you. And I think there are resources available on the FCC, not FTC, but FCC website, the call blocking technology that carriers offer. So you can go to that as a resource. But I would start with whoever your landline carrier is, whoever is your mobile carrier, go to them and ask what call blocking technology is available to me for free. And if they say you have to pay, say, is there anything you can do because I'm getting all of these calls? Then there are a couple things. Most of the carriers will allow you to list certain numbers up to between 10 and 30.
Yeah, but it's like on a hamster wheel after a while.
Exactly. I don't recommend that because the telemarketers can change their numbers so quickly, and you're limited to 10 to 30. You don't want to go that route. It's just far better to have some call blocking technology.
Now, I do know people who use the Nomorobo on their landline at home, and which last I knew, it was free for landlines, and then you had to pay for it for a smartphone. But maybe they've changed it. But the people who I know who use Nomorobo on their landlines, they say that it has cut the telemarketing calls, the robocalls, the nonsense calls by like 90%. Which is a huge improvement. And then I just got an app on my cell phone. It's called Hiya, and H-I-Y-A, like Hiya. And it's supposed to, I don't know how the technology works, but it's supposed to do things that recognize calls that could be, spam and stuff, which I don't answer my work phone or my personal cell phone if I don't recognize the number. If you don't want to leave a message, then I ain't calling you back. And that goes for work too. It's like text me, because I just don't pick up because I get tons. But it's good that there is technology that's being developed to help people now. And the other thing that I'm hearing from folks is some of these thieves they're spoofing like banks. So you might get a call that looks like it's coming from Key Bank. And and since Key Bank's the largest bank in Cleveland, there's, probably like a 1 in 4 chance or something that you might be a customer. And so there's a real high ratio that they might hit. And they say, well, Mr. Jones, there's a problem with your account. There was fraud. We had something that come through. And it's like, it catches you when you're vulnerable. And then it's like, can you confirm your social security number? It's like, oh, no. But, they just, like Sheryl said, these people are pros. This is what they do. They are so good at this. And they just get you going. And if you deflect one way, they get you going another way. And to me, I feel so violated because they're coming into our homes.
Right.
It's like mail is bad enough. Email, you can delete it pretty easy, but the phone rings. And it's an invasion into my home, which is why when I got rid of my landline like 4 years ago, I never looked back, and that was one of the big reasons.
Can I add something
Yeah.
to that? So along the lines of what you said, waiting for the message to come or the voicemail, it's okay if you're getting that call and you have engaged to say, you know what, send me something in the mail. Or let me think about it. Just as I think everyone has raised, get out of that moment of urgency and give yourself a moment to think. Or go back to who you know, your legitimate numbers. Call the bank if it says the bank is calling you. That's that IRS imposter scam. That all was very effective because they were spoofing the IRS number. It made it look like it truly was the IRS. And the advice again is go through independent means to find the source that you know is legitimate and ask if there is a problem with your bank or your credit card or whatever it is they claim to be.
That's the advice that I hand out the most to people, whether it's an email you get, a text message, a phone call. If they leave a voicemail, hi, this is so-and-so from Key Bank or Fifth Third or whatever, do not call back that number. Call the number on the back of your ATM card or on your bank statement or that you look up independently. Never, ever, ever, ever call back a number that was left on your voicemail. Never from a company like that. Unless you called your local branch about something and then it's like, oh, hi, this is Joanne calling back from your local Huntington branch. Then like, okay, you expected that phone call. But things that come out of Sky Blue, emails, phone calls, never, ever, ever, ever call them back. Just period. Makes me think with the urgency. My son, my youngest son, a couple years ago, he was buying tickets to a music festival. And he knows better. Okay, he knows better, and he bought a $300 festival ticket on his credit card that's in his own name, and then he got a phone call, a voicemail message that there was a problem with something and he needed to call back, his credit card, which I don't even think they said the name of the credit card. And I said to him, I'm like, do not call that number. You call the number on the back of your credit card. He was afraid because it was like a pre-sale. And like if the tickets went back in, then the next day the ticket's price was going to go up by like $25. So there was urgency there. Well, it turns out it wasn't even about the festival tickets or anything, but he was so scared that he was going to lose his festival tickets that he almost called the number on the voicemail. And I would have just choked him. Of all things. One of the other things that I want to get into here with the time that we have left before we take the questions is, and we touched on it a little bit, but what should people do if they've either been approached with something they think is a scam or they've actually become a victim of a scam already? Who wants it?
Report it.
Yes.
Report it.
Report it to everybody at this table. Report it to, Better Business Bureau. If it's a scam, you can go on our scam tracker site. The Federal Trade Commission needs to hear from you. The county needs to hear from you. You also need to share this with your neighbors, with people that you go to church with others who might not come to things like this and get educated that this is a scam, this is what happened, I'm hearing about this. Report it, report it, report it. Don't be embarrassed. You are really making strides to help agencies that have enforcement capabilities and who have a lot of public exposure to help warn others and educate others.
Well, and just to echo that. It can sometimes be really difficult to report a scam and a near scam because depending on where you live, like if you don't lose dollars, some police departments won't take that report because it's not a crime if there are no dollars lost. They can't get a prosecution on no dollar loss. Now, that's not true of an agency like the FTC, which can take all of these and mass them all together. So, so one of the reasons, like we have this card, this hang up if card, it tells you on the back, like agencies that you can report to. And if you call this scam squad number, we kind of act as a clearinghouse and get you to the right agency so that you're not reporting and having to like make a series of phone calls, because you would report robocalls to the Federal Trade Commission, but if it's an IRS robocall, I mean, that goes to the FTC, but if you lost money to an IRS robocall, that goes to the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. That's the agency that investigates that. And it's not always intuitive to know where to go, but if you call any agency that's on the back of this card, if you live in Cuyahoga County, they can get you to the right agency. And if you call the Better Business Bureau, if it's about a business, I mean, definitely the Better Business Bureau, because they keep reports and they keep consumers safe. But scams change really rapidly. And if we don't hear about a scam, sometimes we can't know how they're changing to get out ahead of it and to warn other people. I mean, we see them change all the time because once enough people get to know what a scam of one kind looks like and they stop paying, the scammers change it up a little bit. So we need to know what's going on in our community, and we really do want to hear from you.
And that hang card, make sure you go home with that. That's very good.
Yes.
And then the I'll put in a little plug for our scam tracker site too, which there's a brochure out there about this, but it's bbb.org/scam tracker. You do not have to have lost money to report a scam to Scam Tracker. Scam Tracker is a map of the United States, and when you go to the website, you can drill down to your local neighborhood and read the kinds of scams that people have submitted. So people submit information about what the offer was about, the type of scam, and whether or not they lost money. And most people that report scams to us haven't lost money. They just want to share what happened to help warn others. So you can, it's a great place to look and see what's going on in your neighborhood that are scams. And if you get any kind of solicitation, whether it's a phone call or an email or something in the mail or somebody knocking on your door, you can go to that site, and it's just a way to share and warn other people.
I would just echo that it's really important to report. The FTC does not intervene on individual disputes, but every complaint counts. It counts in helping us to figure out what our priority areas should be. It helps us to use the information you provide to us to inform others. Much of what we do is what we're doing here tonight, letting people know about the scams that we see, because we want people to be informed so they don't become victims in the first place. And the Sentinel database that Sheryl mentioned, all of the complaints that come to the FTC are shared with law enforcement. So it's not just available to us, it's available to criminal law enforcement as well, and it helps to inform what they do. So we very much appreciate hearing from you, and I know that it takes extra steps to complain to more than one organization, but it really does matter.
And here's a reason why it matters. If you report them, the Federal Trade Commission just made a settlement with Western Union that goes back.
Yep, back to 2004.
Right.
So if you or a loved one has paid money using Western Union, you may be eligible for a refund. There's a settlement between the FTC and the Department of Justice with Western Union because it was such a favorite vehicle payment mechanism of scam artists. They're returning money. It's something like, $500 million.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money. We don't want it to go to waste. So if you have lost money because you paid a scam artist using Western Union between January 1st, 2004 to January 19th, 2017, you may be eligible. Go to ftc.gov/WU for Western Union, and it will take you to the site and show you and tell you what you need to do. Even if you don't have the records anymore, you can put in as much information as you have. You may still be eligible to get a refund.
And the Lakewood Police Department, props to them,
Yeah.
because they went through, they do take complaints, whether people lost money or not, and they went back through their data for that time, and they contacted all the consumers that they could find who mentioned that they had lost money through Western Union. So they're a scam squad member. We love them, but that's really, that's phenomenal. And it matters because sometimes you don't remember, it's so, I mean, that's a 13-year span. You might have done it by MoneyGram or not remembered it was Western Union, but by reporting, there's some record there that even if you don't remember, you can go back, to a police agency and pull the record, right?
The deadline, by the way, is May
yeah.
31st. So please, if you think you have lost money using Western Union, or you have, or know someone that has, please try to get your refund and submit the information. So ftc.gov/WU for Western Union.
Now, see, this is one of the things that's encouraging to me, because in my 20 years of covering various kinds of scams, that, they used to be primitive and now they're so much more sophisticated, and there weren't the outlets to report things to. I mean, back in the 90s, like when predatory lending was starting, and people would try and complain about that, and nobody was listening because it's just like, it was unheard of. So the fact that we have so many different entities that are looking out for us and that are trying to enforce the law and take care of consumers, I mean, that's real encouraging, I think, to all of us. Why don't you take a couple minutes, Sheryl, and talk about the scam squad, speaking of being proactive.
Okay, so Scam Squad is the coolest name ever. It's really an Elder Financial Fraud Task Force, but we call ourselves Scam Squad.
They have uniforms, too.
No, we don't. We don't. We do have a cool logo, though, that's on this thing. So it's a group of agencies that either are in Cuyahoga County or have offices in Cuyahoga County. So the Better Business Bureau is a member, the FTC is a member, some police departments, Lakewood, Cleveland. There are other police departments that are members. There are consumer agencies like mine, Cleveland Consumer Affairs is a member. We're a member. Legal Aid is a member. A bunch of nonprofits that have dealings with older Americans, and also the Cleveland and the Cuyahoga County Departments of Aging. So what we're trying to do is pull together everybody, as many disciplines as we can, get in a room and make sure that we just have 3 basic goals. And one is to encourage older people who've been scammed to report scams, and that happens a lot of ways: by myth busting about who gets scammed, by encouraging police departments, if you're not going to take the scam report, like, please refer it to an agency, a civil agency. We'll take it. The other is to refer scam complaints to the agency best suited to investigate, because we know a lot of times, like, say there's a social worker who's out taking someone's case, they'll social work their way around it. Oh, can you not make payments? And they'll shore up people's finances, but that scam complaint never gets to where it can be investigated. So we're trying to make sure that we're all working together to capture those scam complaints and get them to the agency that's best situated to investigate. And then the last is, we really want to mine those scam reports for information about what's happening in these scams, so that we can all work together to really make sure that we are telling you about the most current scam threats, and make sure that we have some pointers for you so that you don't lose money to them. So that's kind of, it's newish. It just started in 2016, and if you watch Channel 3 News at all, the Scam Squad, we all do them. Sue's our superstar, because she never flubs,
She
ever.
is a superstar.
But we, different agencies that are Scam Squad members, go on the air, and we do scam warnings and with scam tips, and those air, I think
Thursday.
they air every Thursday. It's 3 times a morning now, so you can always catch them on there too.
Okay, so we're gonna go into some of the questions that you folks have submitted, and I'm actually going to also ask Mike if in a couple of minutes here, if he can start distributing the list of tips and red flags and just quick nuggets of things that you should watch for, to kind of summarize what we've talked about here this evening. I know they have other handouts. We all have business cards, so if there's anything that, phone numbers, web addresses, anything that we've gone over that you didn't catch, you can email any one of us. I'll leave my cards up here, and I don't know where your guys'
Mine are up there on the
Okay. But I still, if you call, I still won't pick up the phone call. I will have to call you back. But I'll leave those up here. So let's see. This could be fun. If I get an email from a friend and it says, check this out, if I click on it, what happens? Probably nothing good. That's the way a lot of viruses are spread. A lot of times you may end up getting like malware on your computer that can steal personal information. I know one of the things that I do as a preventative thing is, even if I forward like a funny video or a link to a news story to my husband or to my sons, I'll put something in the subject line so that they know it's me, not just like, check this out. I'll use a funny phrase that we oftentimes say so that they know it's me, so that they will open the email, because even a lot of times when you're forwarding things, it can look, it can look legit. And so you should never open anything that you're not expecting. And if you do, and it's any kind of link, any kind of exe file, anything like that, don't do it. I run into this a lot. If you have clicked on something, downloaded something, then you should probably get your computer looked at before you start like logging into bank sites, credit card sites, stuff like that. Anything to add?
I think that's a really good point. A lot of times the phishing emails don't, like that malware, they don't have any content. So exactly as Teresa said, it'll just be a link. Check this out in a link. Usually your family member, your loved one will tell you something. You know it's from them. But these scam emails typically just have very little information. They want you to go directly to the link. So that's a red flag right there.
This is a good one. What's the story with Equifax? Well, how long do we have? Somebody says, should I be worried? For those of you who don't know, about half the adult population, 148 million and counting people, their personal information was hacked from Equifax's files. It was revealed last September. It included names, addresses, social security numbers, driver's license, dates of birth. And then the thing that's really scary is because they can mix and match, they can tell like who you're related to, who lives in the same household as you. So it just makes like identity theft all that much easier. So what has happened what's the story with Equifax and what has happened? Not nearly enough. Who wants to take that?
I can say some proactive things. So, and please jump in. First of all, there are some tips available on the FTC's website, a lot of common Q&As that we've been receiving. So if you go to ftc.gov/Equifax, it'll take you to Q&As. But yes, you should be concerned. The one thing you can do that is free is check your credit report. So go to annualcreditreport.com. and you can check your credit report. You get one free for each of the credit bureaus, and you should get one free from Equifax right away. And you'll get, you can stagger these, so throughout the year you would have one every 4 months. Check your credit report to make sure there aren't accounts that you don't recognize. Check your information to make sure that it's accurate. You also want to be vigilant about your bank account statements, credit card statements. Just be watching for charges that you don't remember making or that are unusual. There is reason to be cautious in the wake of this data breach, and there are so many others out there. We have to be vigilant and make sure that our information isn't getting out there, unfortunately.
And I'll just add that in the state of Ohio, you have the right to get something that's called a credit freeze. And some states offer those free. Ohio The law isn't that way. You have to pay for them. It's $5 per bureau, and you have to get them at all 3 bureaus to freeze your credit. And what it is it basically locks up your credit report. And so if someone has gotten your Social Security number, which is one of the things that was stolen from Equifax, is that they can't run a credit report because your credit report is frozen. And what you get when you freeze it, you pay $5, you get a password, and you have to keep that with you. And then when you want credit, when you actually want to apply for credit, under Ohio law, the bureaus have to thaw within 15 minutes of getting your request, and you can thaw by phone. I've had one for years. I love it. I don't worry as much about that kind of fraud. I mean, it won't protect you from someone taking your Social Security number and filing for taxes in your name and, some inflated amount so that you have trouble getting your return. But it does protect you from that kind of new account fraud, which can be really pesky to clear up. A thaw costs $5. You can set it by the company, or you can set it for a period of time. Frankly, I always set it for a period of time, because if you're a little bit wrong about the name of the company, say you're getting a Marathon card, but the Marathon card is run by Comenity. If you say Marathon, they're not unfreezing it for the company that's operating the card. But if you can say, I just want it unfrozen, ask the company, how many bureaus are you checking? How long is it going to take you? And just thaw for that amount of time, because they're pretty speedy about getting it done. And it's really not a hassle at all. There is a way you can do it if you've actually been a victim of identity theft, where it's a free thing. But I'm going to tell you, I have only heard stories from people who had difficulty with the thaws and freezes when they try to do that free victim route. And I think it's just worth the $5 to do it. And how often do you really get credit? Not often. You open a credit card, once in a gazillion years if you're me. But, you might need it if you open a bank account. You might need it if you get a car loan. But most of us are not really using credit all the time. So that freeze is nice. Set it and forget it.
And then I'll add to that, the whole thing with the credit freezes is there's actually a provision in a pending Senate bill, and it's Senate Bill 2155, that would make credit freezes free for everybody.
Oh.
Now, we'll see if it goes through. I'm not a big fan of the larger legislation that this provision is part of, but, excuse me, but this would be a step towards, giving us control over our information back. And the thing I'll say about Equifax, too, is the fact that whoever's got the information, and there really hasn't been a lot coming out from it, but it makes all the stuff that we've talked about tonight like that much scarier, because somebody can call you or send you something in the mail and they already know half your life. Like, they're going to know your name and your date of birth, and they're going to know your Social Security number. So it would be nothing for them to pose as PNC or Chase Bank, and with them, given their spiel, they would just get you like all sucked into whatever they're trying to hose you over with. And it's scary, because these are things we can't change. We can't change our date of birth. We can't change our Social Security number. And somebody out there has got it. And I think we have not yet seen how this information will be used, against us.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
What about their promotion about to see if your information's on the dark web?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, that's with Experian, which, by the way, the Equifax story broke on a Thursday evening. I think it was September 7th. And it was within an hour that Experian had ads on TV, because I think I was watching baseball that night or something. And as Experian had their ads on TV for the dark web, I'm like, well, snap, they sure had advance notice of that. The Experian, the dark web thing, it's using your email.
Okay.
Okay, well, I've got like 8 emails, like legit. And just, no. And if you want to sign up for a credit freeze, which Sheryl has promoted quite well, and I'm a big fan of as well, do not get sucked into signing up for a credit lock or any of the other cutesy names that the credit bureaus come up with, because credit freezes are regulated by law. And they'll try and offer you this other thing over here that, blings and is free and it sounds swell and it sounds easy, but it's not regulated. And there's a reason why they're putting lipstick on this for you. TransUnion was really bad about that.
Right.
When you went up, like it's, through the fall, and I haven't been on the interface in a while, but you went on it and it's like you wanted to sign up for a freeze and it'd be like, well, look over here, there's this lock thing. And it's like, and you hit, I want to freeze. And they're like, are you sure? And then like, it's just layers and layers and layers. The bureaus don't like to be regulated. Big wham for them. The train's coming down the tracks. And if you want a credit freeze, get a credit freeze. Don't get talked into anything else. Now, with that, if there are any services that are provided by like an existing creditor or an existing relationship you have with your bank, and they've already got all your information, then some of those identity theft services that are free can be good. Like I know Discover is offering some identity theft, run your social security number kind of thing. If you're already a customer with them, they've got it. But just make sure, don't go out like, hunting online for like identity theft protection, because then you're going to come across probably the first 20 results are going to be, not the FTC and not any of these legit, it's probably going to be scams. Okay, let's blow through some of these other questions in the time that we have left. I've been getting legitimate but hard sell calls from electric companies asking to change my service to their company. Once it was so pressured that I let them have the information. I was really angry. Oh goodness, she gave them her bill. And then called back the company immediately and canceled it, thumbs up. I'm getting those calls again. I say I'm not the owner of the account, although I am. Lying is great in some circumstances. It's like, it's like, I'm just the aunt that's, house sitting the dog. Go away.
The PUCO, actually, all of those suppliers are supposed to be registered. They're supposed to follow rules that are enforced by the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. And if you're getting these kind of hard sell things, I would report them to the PUCO so that they should know. There are certain rules that they have to follow in selling them. And we've had a lot of them come in, people who, one guy, they wanted to change, I guess it wasn't his utility, it was his home alarm system.
That's another big one.
They're really aggressive on these. And so his girlfriend, who wasn't even the owner of the house, he told them no. They went away. They came back when the girlfriend was there, and they kind of bullied her. But and they told her that he had already approved it, and she should just sign for him. So she did. She thought she let them in, and then he came home, he got this bill, later, and he said, wait a minute, this is not my company. We're done. I didn't hire. And then they sent debt collectors after them. And we actually, we contacted them, and we had some problems with them letting someone who was an owner of the home sign a contract and having their salespeople encourage people to sign for other people. So they actually canceled out the debt. But I mean, there just are so many of these door-to-door aggressive sellers. And you know what? They are strangers. You don't have to give them the time of day. And they're very, they do what's called high-pressure sales. They just, it's kind of relentless. It's like when you get in a room where they want to sell you a timeshare or something. They just have these techniques that they use to make you get anxious and just go ahead and do it to make them go away. And you don't have to spend any time with them at all. If they can't leave you materials, if they want to leave you sales materials that you can look over at your leisure, that is okie dokie, but don't let people like in person, because again, it's hard to get out of that sense of urgency that they're creating about it. You only get the deal now. So, and the same is true of these utilities, shysters.
Yeah, if somebody calls you or comes up, to your door, don't give them your information. If they're really representing your electric company or gas or alarm, whatever, and they're going to have your information. Okay, we're going to do lightning round here. This question, it says, what are repeated calls from same phone exchange mine but different number each time? So I think what they're talking about here, and they said they get calls multiple times a day. I think what they're talking about is like here in Lakewood, you might get calls that look like they're coming from 216-226 or 216-228.
No, same area code, but the same exchange, the first three numbers.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean,
These are my first three numbers, and I'll get calls, and every time, the last four digits is different.
right. Yeah, they're trying to make it look
No,
like, I guarantee you those calls are not coming from Lakewood. They're just not.
no, they're not. Early on, I tried with my cell phone, I covered my number,
Yeah.
*67, and I called them back. And
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Well, that cell phone I don't use anymore, the account's closed, but all I get
I know
was
why.
a fax machine beep, or a message that said, this call is not in service, but the calls continue, I don't answer them.
Good, good. I
But
mean,
they continue.
get, if it's on a cell phone, get high up.
Caller ID, it's a different form.
Yeah, it's just, they're spoofing it. They're trying, look, they can't scam you if you don't pick up. So they are trying their darndest to get you to pick up.
Last four numbers, and that's what they're trying to do, unless I continually erase those every day, you know? Because it's like 226, 1234.
Yeah.
Then 226, 1235.
Yeah, just don't answer them and you don't have to worry. I mean, is it annoying? Yes. You know,
No.
get some of this call blocking technology that we're talking about and
Yeah.
they'll go down.
How do you do their call blocking technology?
Who's your
with
carrier?
base phone? You call your company?
Yes.
Okay.
Call your company, ask them what kind of call blocking technology that they have.
Okay.
And then some of the apps, like for cell phones, some of them do cost like $3-4, okay?
Right.
And my goodness, it's worth it.
A one time?
Yeah, one time. And you know, if you want, I can point you to some reviews of some legit places. Okay, next question. What is the time frame before a bank? I can't read this, and I don't think it's just my eyes. Okay, what is the time frame before the bank something? I know if a check that I deposited is really good. Is there a way to check? Who wants
Like
that
a
lightning round?
counterfeit. It's a
Well,
counterfeit
it's,
check. How long?
so I would say that I don't know, no, they have to give you, your banks are required to give you your access to your deposited checks as quickly as they can. And so I would say, I would wait weeks. I would wait a couple weeks. And the thing is this, if they want you to deposit the check and then send back the money within a couple days, I would assume that's a scam.
Right.
I would just not do anything with that at all.
Yeah, and the scary thing about some of these like counterfeit checks, like cashier's checks and even personal checks that are written like on businesses that are out of state, I get a lot of queries from people who are like selling cars on Craigslist, selling things on eBay, and selling things in the classifieds.
Renting apartments?
Yeah, and you know, and sometimes the checks are for overpayments, and sometimes the checks are like for the legit amount, or work at home scams. But they're getting a check, and it looks so legit. And I've covered some of these cases where the bank has accepted the check, and it gets deposited. A lot of times it's for a car sale, and it could be weeks before it is uncovered that check is fraudulent.
But you can ask your bank, I mean, once you deposit a check, you can ask your bank, has it cleared the issuing bank? I mean, they should be able to tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, because normally checks under 5,000 will clear. Generally, they'll make the funds available within one business day, and then they can hold the funds for up to 11 days unless there's like extenuating circumstances. But a lot of times it can be weeks before a good counterfeit check comes to
Because
light.
the ACH system that Terry mentioned before, it's automatic, right? So these checks are winging through there really quick. A counterfeit check gets bounced out, and someone's got to manually process it, so it slows down that process. So you got to outweigh them.
If you have a choice between paying online and by check, which is safer?
Paying what?
Paying for something either online or by check, which is safer?
Credit card. A credit card, because you have dispute rights with a credit card that you don't have with any other payment form, even a debit card. And
Especially a debit card.
Especially a debit card. But yeah. And then you don't have to fight about getting your own money back, right? You just get a credit card bill, and if it's fraudulent, you have a dispute right. So you aren't out any money. But if you write a check or you let someone get money right out of your account, you're fighting to get your own money back, and that's hard.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's it depends, like if you're making a credit card payment, do you want the payment to come from your bank account online, or do you want to mail them a check? I mean, it's part of it's personal comfort level. But if you're buying merchandise, that's definitely the area where you want to pay by credit card, never a debit card on your primary account. And, you know, certainly not by like electronic check, which you can do. Like you can pay for even like Amazon, you can pay things out of your checking account. Don't do that. I mean, Amazon's okay, I don't have anything against them, but these other like, you know, sites that you may not have heard of before, and don't give them your bank account information, don't pay them by a check. Let's see. Currently in Rocky River, there is an individual going to merchants, clustered stores asking for $50 to $70. He claims he was locked out of his business. He mentioned the store's name. It sounds familiar. Locksmith is at his store and wants payment, so there's urgency going on here. Individual promises to return immediately after he can get into his store where he has money in his register. He does not return. Is this a scam that you guys, this kind of thing, something you've heard of before?
No, but it sounds like an imposter trying to get money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it recently? Yeah. So is this so a warning, be on the lookout for this person? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I don't know that this necessarily falls into the category of scams, but how can we stop political calls?
They're exempt.
They are exempt. They're exempt from the do not call.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Don't have a phone. The only way.
Somebody else asks, is counterfeit money a problem?
Not that I know.
Yeah.
A problem in what
In what context?
regard?
Yeah.
This is counterfeit money a
Any
problem? I don't hear about it that much. I mean, every once in a while, I actually just got an email from a guy like maybe a week or two ago that he had gotten change back from Giant Eagle, and then he went to go spend it someplace else or maybe deposit it, and it got flagged and confiscated as counterfeit. And so he was kind of ticked, rightfully so, that you'd think a big company like Giant Eagle would not be passing out counterfeit bills.
It goes into the register and then they get changed for what.
Yeah,
Right.
but I mean, you know, although where was I? Oh, I know where I was, I won't say. But I was at a store once and they did the little marker swipey thing on a $5 bill. And I was like, really? They're like counterfeiting fives now? I didn't know if I looked like particularly suspicious or what the deal was. Somebody else says, are debit cards a problem? Well, we don't have enough time for that, but the answer is yes. Don't have a debit card. If you don't use a debit card, don't let the bank talk you into it. I don't care if you're getting it from KeyBank and it costs you $1 a month to not get it, or you're getting it from PNC and I think it's $1.25 a month to get just an ATM only card. You don't want their debit card because it exposes your checking account. But if you use a debit card and you want one, get it on that secondary checking account that I've talked you into opening, because that way if something happens, it's not going to compromise your main bank account that you get your direct deposit into, you pay your bills out of, all that good stuff. Yep, we are at 8 o'clock. The last question that somebody asked me here is, who's who on the panel? Okay, well, I'm Teresa, this is Sue, this is Larissa, and this is Sheryl. And if you have any questions for any of us, I'm sure that we'll be happy to hang around for a couple of minutes. And yes?
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you for coming.
We do have the materials up here. We have business cards. Feel free to email me. If you call us, leave a message. And
everybody's agency numbers are on the back of this.
And here's your parting words. Things are not as they seem like. People are not who they say they are a lot of the times. So be paranoid. Be distrustful. The phone, the email, the text message, the grandchild, the bank, they aren't
Oh, liars.
They often are not who they say they are. You have got to take care of yourself. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.